Hello everyone and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan and thank you for coming to the channel. Well, I'm literally on the floor looking at the 5.5 gallon Petco special. That's what this aquarium is, the cheapest, probably cheapest glass box you can buy, period, especially if you get them during Petco's quarterly sale. It's like $1 a gallon or something like that. And I bought this that way some time ago. And this little aquarium has had many iterations. At one point I had tried just using it as a plant grow out in a sort of Wallstead type system, and that was pretty cool. And then I put in a bunch of my first generation of fry from the Live Bears tank, which sits just above it. And if you look at the previous video, that's what it's all about. Well, all the chaos, organized, lovely chaos in that particular aquarium. And I was so excited for the fry of my mollies and platies and swordtails. I put as many of them as I could in that plant grow out tank, which was this tank. And of course, in a few weeks, I had a population that was not sustainable in such a small aquarium. So I promptly took them all to my local fish store. And rather than keep doing that over and over again, I changed this aquarium to more of a super organic tank for shrimp, Neocaridina, and a group of celestial pearl danios, CPDs, or the Galaxy Resbora, which you can see right there. There we go, there's a fat female. Looks like a pair bopping around in there. And a bunch of other creatures, snails. There's an Otocinclus swimming up the glass there, and there's even a Plecostomus in here, a bristlenose, which he may or may not come out while we're filming, probably, because where is he? You know, it's such a small footprint for a tank, but it's such an organic kind of jumble of material. It's my least thought out aquascape, and I guess it's thoughtless by design, so it's thoughtfully thoughtless. Oh my God, give me, Lord have mercy. In any event, it's pretty cool, right? I mean, it's super organic. I've got a row of Anubias. They're not stuck on anything. They're basically just sort of placed near the bottom, and then there's some rock and wood on either side, more or less holding them in. But because there's not a lot of real estate in this tank, even if they float up a half an inch or so, I mean, that's about as far as they'll go. I've got some gnarly Java moss there in the center in the event that these CPDs feel like spawning. I've got hornwort, Brazilian pennywort, frog bit, duckweed, all of that on top, as well as some water sprite, and obviously, and maybe this is doing the best of everything. Look at that, the usual robust performance from Pothos. I've got the green and white variety, and then the classic gold or golden Pothos, probably. Maybe it's another strain, I don't know. I pull cuttings from everywhere in my fish room and outside of my fish room. I've always joked that when I go to the dentist, I might snip a cutting from the sad little plant they've got in the waiting room, and voila, I convert it to something which I think is a lot happier, pulling all the nutrients and goodies out of this aquarium. I've got a simple cheap Hygger light, or inexpensive full spectrum light, works like a champ. And then I've got an even smaller Hygger light just sitting on the glass there, because this one is essentially basically lighting these emergent plants. And so I wanted to cast not too much, but more light within the tank. I don't think either of them are on their full setting, which is not necessary in an aquarium like this. If anything, the fish and the plants would be unhappy if they were being blasted by light, and that includes the invertebrates as well. Shrimp are happy in the nooks and crannies, and because they're so tiny, too much light makes them fearful and skittish. I've got all kinds of Neocaridina in here, from pretty red cherry shrimps all the way down to the wild forms. And you can see there's a grayish one shooting across. There's sort of a really colored one in that it's white and red, kind of a stripe pattern. There's really quite a few in here. There's a saddleback shrimp that's either a gold or a golden with the what they call the yellow saddleback or golden saddleback, or it's an Amano shrimp, and I'm crazy. I'm sure I put some Amanos in here at one time or another. You can see the Otto. So they're okay in a small aquarium like this, especially when you've got the organized chaos and all these plants. The plants are living and dying, and I'm not doing a whole lot to address the leaves as they degrade, because essentially the leaf litter and the twigs and sticks, they're my substrate. I do not have any aqua soil in here, any gravel in here, unless it accidentally happened into this tank. It's a bare bottom tank, but what you can do if you're using botanicals, sticks and twigs, and you're letting all the leaves fall to the bottom, and the snails are doing what they do, and the leaves are degrading, it will create a mulm. And over time, I think that's a pretty valid substrate in and of itself. I didn't want to have to put dirt in here, because once I commit to that, then if I change the scape around, I have to deal with what I have going on in terms of the bottom. Whereas here, if I wanted to do an about face, it wouldn't be that complicated. A bucket or two, and I could pull everything out and redo this aquarium. Also, why? I don't need the inches of substrate that everybody talks about, because I'm using so much organic material in lieu of that. So it's kind of a neat alternative, and I didn't invent this. I was watching a video about a year ago, and this fellow, and I'm so sorry I don't recall his name or channel, but I do remember he said, I have this 75-gallon bare bottom tank, and instead of doing a dirted bottom, he opted for just driftwood and epiphytes, and he created an entire lower level of wood and plants. And I thought that was pretty cool. And you couldn't tell he didn't have a substrate per se. It's not like you see the glass really, but I wanted to mimic that or emulate. Well, I can't emulate it because this tank was outstanding and this is sort of a lovely mess, but I wanted to cop that idea, and I did. And so I went from sort of a pretty ornate little Wallstead tank about a year ago, and it really was working given I wasn't using CO2. The stem plants looked great. It was really cool. But once I threw in all those live bears and had to catch them out, it was a shit show and it disrupted everything. And I decided to go with a kind of shrimp and invertebrate tank. And this is now what I called on the thumbnail the come as you are casual tank. The shrimps don't need to be fancy, no dress code. All they have to do is their job, and it's a job that they love, which is feasting on the biofilm and the bajillion little particulates and delightful organisms that shrimps feast on, up the food chain to these CPDs. Granted, this setup's never going to show off their colors the way more elaborate planted tanks will, but it's a glorious little fish. I don't have a heater in this tank, and while CPDs can appreciate mid-70s, I'm at about 71 in this aquarium at this time. There's the bristlenose. So he or she, I can't tell if the bristles are developing, it's still young, is right at the cusp of being too big for this aquarium, but the only way I'll really catch them out without creating a storm of debris is if I do a complete, a do-over, which, as I said, because of the way I set this up and the size of the tank, it wouldn't be that big of an undertaking. So maybe in this late spring or early summer, I'll get a yen to try something different. I really doubt, though, I'll remove this top layer. I think I want to keep that no matter what I would do in here, and that does limit me to some extent because of the light that is being blocked. This will never be an ornate aquascape, and because it's on the lower level, I think it's a more utilitarian aquarium, and as I'm sitting on the floor, that's just not what I do generally. So this is an aquarium where I could put baby fish in. If I got something at a swap, in a pinch, I could use this as a temporary housing for it. I could go back to a plant only, grow out tank, but honestly, even there, the stems, if there's not a lot of room for them to grow anyway, and I'm not using substrate, and the lights are weak and they're being blocked. So I think I'm just gonna try to keep optimizing what Mother Nature is doing in this particular setup and call it the come as you are tank. I bet a lot of you have a similar aquarium where you're just sort of, not letting things go to seed. I've got my hands in this tank. As you can tell from my narrative, I've done a lot with it, changed its storyline, changed the plants and the livestock, but it's an organic jumble. And I'm sure everybody watching this video, either intentionally or unintentionally, has at least one aquarium just like it. All right, everybody, I hope you appreciated this honest look at a non-aquascape, non-high-tech aquarium with very inexpensive hardware and easy-growing, fast-growing, simple plants and pilfered plants from the dentist office, etc. As always, folks, keep your hands in the tank, and ciao for now.